My name is Mark Jenkinson, for those who don't know me, and I'm I'm the Vice President of the South East London Chamber of Commerce, and I lead on all things sustainability for the Chamber. And this is the since the Greener Greenwich Summit back in March 2024. This is part of a series of events which were inspired, I guess, from the summit. And we came up with 17 project initiatives and ideas, and solar was one of them. And we know a lot of members and other companies around the region, i.e. Bexley, Bromley, Croydon, Lewisham, and Greenwich, are looking into solar, have experience with solar. So we thought that it was key that we actually kind of run this webinar and maybe do a bit of an introduction, but also a slight deep dive from Andrew and Daniel, who kind of work with solar on a daily basis. I think they're gonna present for about 35 minutes or so, and then there'll be time for questions. But so if you've got any questions, burning questions in the meantime, please stick them in the chat. And I think without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andrew and Daniel. So enjoy the session, and but please also engage. Thanks. Take care.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself and then I'll give
Yeah,
myself a crack
yeah,
into
sounds good.
the
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Daniel Beaton. I'm the Renewable Energy Projects Manager at South East London Community Energy. We're your friendly local community energy group working across Lewisham, Greenwich, Bromley, Bexley. Um, yeah, and I'll speak more about us later, and now I'll hand over to Andrew.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. Hi, I'm Andrew Labrook. I'm a regional director for a company called Greenshield Group, which is primarily based up in Ribchester, up in Preston, but I am the representative down in London. I've been a member of the chamber since February. Yeah, and I think what we're going to try to do today is kind of go through four areas. I'll bring up the presentation and then that will be easier to do because then you can see the agenda. Let's hope that this works. Excellent. Can everyone see that? Can I get brilliant? Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Yeah, so I think this is just a introduction. It's reasonably high level. We'll kind of flag up areas that you need to know rather than necessarily doing deep dives into each individual part. If you have questions, we'll try to answer those. And if we kind of pick up a number of areas that we need to do in a more detailed way, we'll kind of do that in the future if we can't cover them in the questions at the end. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to kind of look at why solar matters, how you can make it happen, or at least the process that you can start upon to kind of get to ensure that you kind of eventually install solar. And then Daniel will talk through the community energy approach, and then we'll kind of go through a few case studies at a high level just so you can see what's been done in your area and kind of the scope and the success of solar. Unfortunately for all of you, I will be doing the first two sections, so my apologies, you'll be bored of my voice by the end. So why solar matters? There is a very large sort of solar opportunity that's happening right now. The UK is on track to sort of record the highest adoption ever of solar power. We've certainly had a number of days over this year where solar has generated significant amounts of energy, and there have been whole hours where renewables, so wind as well as solar, have provided all the energy for the grid. So that's a really positive step. Businesses are increasingly driving that change. They're looking to cut their costs and reduce their carbon footprints as well. And then it's not just about sustainability, although that is a very important part. It's also about business resilience. By adopting solar, you'll become your own generator. So if the grid has a problem, then you'll be okay. Been told my camera's about to die, so my apologies. I'm just going to quickly change my camera if I can. Why go solar? There are four good reasons. Reduced energy costs, both in the short term and in the long. You can kind of create some long-term price stability. There is the sustainability benefits. You'll have measurable carbon reductions, which will help you move towards your net zero goals. You'll be energy independent, so you get greater control over your energy costs in the long term, so you're less impacted by changes that happen in the market. And then you also have a brand advantage in terms of who you sell to. There's definitely a shift in the market where your suppliers will want companies that have sustainability plans, are showing movement towards that, and do have reduced carbon. How should you make it happen? So here's like 7 steps. Like here's what we believe is the sort of core 7 steps. The first step is exploring or exploration. You're going to start looking out and kind of figuring out what companies you want to work with, how to move forward. Most of us will probably give you an initial consultation. Certainly, Green Shield Group will come in and provide a free consultation. We'll try to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you wish to achieve it. In that way, that will have quite a big impact on what we actually design in the long run. Once you've gone through that pace, we'll then start to do some consumption profiling, while we'll use data that we collect from you to understand how you're using your energy, and therefore, again, how that impacts what we build for you. That then all flows into the design of what we do. That's essentially how many panels we're going to put on your roof, where we're going to put them on the roof, what sort of technologies we're going to use, are you going to have a battery, etc., etc. You then move forward into the funding if you wish to continue, if you've looked at it and gone, actually, this is a really good idea for my business. This provides the savings or the carbon emission reductions we're looking for into funding. We'll do a sort of deeper dive onto that, but you can both self-fund and also get finance. There are a number of finance options in order to sort of move forward with your solar. You then got to go through planning, whether that's working, that'll be working with the DNO if the installation is large enough. That's your local network operator in order to get permission. That will take some time and that will extend how long that takes. And then you'll then have to, but there'll also be sometimes planning permission. There's a number, I think I've heard of a recent project in the area that's actually being slowed down by some planning permission problems because the local council is concerned. And that is true at both a domestic level and a commercial level. From there, hopefully, once you've successfully moved through all of those stages, you'll then move on to installation, where the teams will come in, scaffolding will come around your building, presumably, and then we'll start to install the solar panels and any other technologies that you've requested. So EV chargers, again, batteries, etc., etc. And then performance monitoring. You need to make sure that what you've installed continues to work. You'll monitor that performance. You'll probably continue to do maintenance. Depending on how close you are to, say, an area where that creates a lot of dirt, it depends on how often you need to get the solar panels cleaned, but keeping the solar panels cleaned will be important. And then finally, you may want to consider additional options. Again, I've mentioned them so far. There are a range of those, and they will all help you move on your journey to net zero. In terms of the data that you'll need in that sort of second stage, again, at least we ask for, and I'm sure others ask for, it will be sort of your half-hourly data. So from your electricity provider, they will be able to, as a commercial operation, you already know, they will already have access to what your half-hourly data is. It looks a lot like what your smart meter has today. So we'll ask for that. So that's how we understand the patterns of usage. We'll then typically ask for a year's energy bill so we can understand how they're charging you, how they're charging you and when. We'd also ask you how long you've got on your current provider, because if you are changing providers, that will obviously change the ROI, and you might be able to get a better deal or a worse deal, and then we can inform you there. And then your geographic location, that's actually quite important. Admittedly, we're talking to the Southeast Chambers here, so there's not that many differences, but if you're behind a large canopy of trees, that may have an impact on how many panels go up and where those panels go up on your roof. But broadly, everyone in this group will kind of be having a similar geographic location. That data does inform design, like just taking a very simple example of the difference between residential usage and commercial usage. On the left-hand side, we've got residential. You can see that the usage patterns are typically in the morning and the afternoon. And then for commercial operations, typically the usage pattern happens during the day. So this actually has quite a big impact on whether you take a battery or not, because for the residential options, you're generating a huge amount of energy during the day from your solar panels, but you're not really using it. And therefore, the battery is really much more worthwhile. For commercial businesses, there are a number of reasons why you may take a battery, but sometimes the business case isn't quite as clear cut. That again varies. These are very generic examples, but broadly, this is kind of how this looks like. If you overbuilt your solar on your commercial building, maybe you'd need a battery more pressingly. And again, that is built around your goals and why you're trying to achieve this. But no business is the same, and everyone again has different usage patterns. And by understanding your usage patterns, we can create different designs that will help you save the most amount of money by reducing your outlay, but making sure your returns are better. So again, two very generic examples we've got on the left-hand side: consistent energy usage. So it pretty much happens in that sort of 9 to 5. Very much there's a little break in lunchtime where everyone goes off and has their food. And then on the right hand side is an example of a company that's very similar to a printer. They'll have like big, large rush jobs. Suddenly everything comes online, print, 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 print. But then there'll be downtime. And so you can see that in the energy. You kind of go down to your yellows and your greens, and then you just have these occasional reds. These different usage patterns, even though your overall usage may be similar throughout the year, do have an impact. So if we go through to the next one, you can see that actually what we've done is created two very different designs. The one on the left for the consistent energy usage, it has a slightly larger energy solar array, costs slightly more upfront, but delivers ROI far quicker. And the one on the right, where you've got inconsistent usage, it's harder to kind of, from an ROI perspective and from a commercial perspective, it's harder to kind of build out such a large solar array, and even building a slightly smaller one means that the ROI is slightly less. You got 4.1 years versus 3.6. But again, by understanding that usage pattern, that has an impact. It's not just the case of have roof, fill roof, because as again here, you see that there is the opportunities where on the left-hand side, we've advised a much smaller installation for the roof for only sort of £32,000, delivers an ROI in just over 5 years, versus your fill your roof option where it's possibly £350,000, and the ROI payback period takes about 12 years, just over 12 years. So again, you don't necessarily, just because you've got a large roof, you don't have to fill it. You need to understand how much energy you're using and when you're using it to kind of build a system that's bespoke to you. No one should take a one size fits all or just fill whatever you've got. I won't go into too much detail here because this is a complexity that is to a degree beyond me. But your roof, the type of roof you have, the angle and where your roof faces, as well as the degree to which your roof is, has a huge impact on the efficiency of your solar panels, how many solar panels we can put on, the cost of solar, and the success of solar in terms of generating energy for you. A lot of these things can be worked around, and again, you'll be advised to hopefully create you a good system, but there are differences. And if your building faces slightly different from your neighbor, that will have an impact on how much energy you can generate, even though you are in a very similar location. Same as if your roof is less sloped or more sloped, that will have an impact. If your roof has asbestos, or it's an asbestos roof, that may be a problem, but again, you can kind of get that built in. Typically, some companies, as they install solar, will re-roof or will at least cover the asbestos with additional cladding. There are options around that, and again, that can be covered as you finance or part of your CapEx project, so it can be a whole roof operation. There are choices, but it's just worthwhile bearing in mind how these things do impact what can happen with your solar and how quickly it can be installed. In terms of funding options, there are sort of three big ways to sort of fund any solar installation. There is a CapEx purchase where you are essentially funding from your own resources, whether that's through a bank loan that you are directly taking, or whether that's from the savings that the business has. To a degree, it's self-funded, however you have chosen to do that. Second option is a power purchase agreement. There is no upfront cost. You are paying pretty much on a kilowatt basis. So you're paying a price for your energy. You are buying the energy, not the system, albeit at the end of that loan period, which can be between 10 and 25 years. You'll own the system, but up until that point, it is owned by your financier. Or you can lease or do finance options. Asset finance is very effective and can deliver good quality loans for short periods of time and also provide very predictable costs. Again, we've seen a lot of smaller operations, smaller projects opt for asset finance over PPA. PPA typically works really well for much larger projects. Yeah, and there are sort of 4 PPAs, depending, there's probably 5 if we include community. Sorry, Daniel. Too much of my own spiel. There are 4 PPAs. There's a sort of variable PPA, which has sort of very low sort of long-term predictability because it adjusts according to inflation. The potential savings up front are very high. You'll typically get a lower price to begin with, but there's an expectation it will increase over time. There's a capped PPA, which is very similar to the first one, but you've agreed upon a certain, actually we'll only pay up to, if inflation was to run riot, as if that would ever happen, you say actually we're going to have a 10% cap, and that's as high as it can go. So it'll still move generally by RPI, but if RPI exceeds 10%, you won't be having an increase of more than 10%. This offers a lot of the benefits of variable, kind of a lower price to begin with, and but again offers some of the downsides. There's less predictability, but there is a little bit more predictability built into it. There is a fixed increase. Typically, it's normally done by percentage, so you may agree to a 2% percentage increase every year. The price will start slightly higher than a variable PPA or a capped PPA, typically, depending on your negotiation, but it provides a lot more confidence around how your future pricing and how this will all go. And then finally, there is a fixed PPA. You'll say choose, we're going to start off by paying 18p per kilowatt or whatever it is you choose, and then that will actually continue over the period of time of your PPA project. If you choose a fixed PPA, that will typically be the highest start point for your price, because it's not going to move over time. So your lender will probably choose to provide you a much higher price. That's to help them get definitively a clearer ROI, but you are looking for certainty, so you kind of pay the upfront, but over time it should work out. So these fixed PPAs are normally for businesses seeking very explicitly certainty over their energy costs in the long run. Oh, I've been quite quick. There's no case studies for this point. We're going to jump on to Daniel, who will talk us through the community energy approach.
Nice, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so I'll chat a bit about community energy and then end with a case study of ours from Greenwich, and then hand back to Andrew for some more case studies and then questions. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I'm Daniel Baton, guys, from Southeast London Community Energy, CELSI for short. A lot of people say Selkie, but it's CELSI is what we've gone with for now. Yeah, so I'll briefly be talking about community energy and kind of community financing of solar as an additional way in which to structure and finance a solar project. And maybe just very quickly at the start, I'll introduce what community energy is, as many people might not be aware. So I guess as an approach, community energy basically allows people and communities to take democratic control over their energy future by understanding, generating, using, owning, and kind of saving energy within our local communities, as well as working together across regions and nationally. There's Community Energy London, Community Energy England, where we kind of work as a whole. So there's almost 500 community energy groups all over the UK, and in London there's I think more than 30 now. So we're just one of those, and we work in Southeast London. You may have come across other groups as well. Croydon Community Energy Group in Croydon, they just focus there. SC1 Solar in Southwark just works in Southwark, and Repowering London kind of works all over the south. So we're just one of these groups. We're a community benefit society and a cooperative, so we're owned by our members. You may have met our CEO Giovanna at many a chamber event in the past. And we currently own and operate 12 solar sites all over Southeast London, kind of on behalf of the local community and our investor members of the cooperative. Community energy groups, we're speaking about solar today, but we don't just do solar. Groups look at all technologies, batteries. With Mark, actually, we're looking at a micro tidal in the Thames project. Groups up north looking at micro hydro, solar carports, EV charging, air source heat pumps. You name it, a group will be keen to chat to you about it. Cool. So maybe let's go on to the next slide, Andrew. Yeah, so
There we go.
basically how does community energy and community finance model kind of work? So basically, like Andrew was speaking about with a PPA, it's essentially a solar as a service PPA kind of deal. CELSI, we would own and operate the system and operate it on your behalf. So if we look at this kind of diagram here, it explains the whole process. So that would be your business over on the right. That is, you would be considered, I guess, the host site, and your responsibility would be signing a roof license with us and a power purchase agreement for an agreed price per kilowatt hour. Let's say 14p per kilowatt hour, and that would be a fixed price over the term. We generally go with 20-year terms for the agreement. And that price only fluctuates with RPI, CPI, that kind of thing. Yeah, so we own and operate the system over its lifetime, and we kind of raise the money for the system. This is where it's a bit different from members of the local community all over Southeast London. So we'll do a community share offer. We'll go out to anyone in the community. This can be your staff. This can be as any member of the public, and they can invest from £200 up to, I think, 20,000 or £100,000 into the system, and they get a 4 or 5% return on that. So that's kind of how it would work for us. So below, the custodianship of the full project life cycle is all handled by the Community Energy Group. So kind of the end-to-end of the whole system over that 20 years, from feasibility and procurement and that capital raise through O&M, all through the lifetime of the system. And then we usually just hand it off and donate the system to the host site at the end of the 20 years. So that system is then yours for free. We'll also take the system off if you don't want it there anymore. That's also fine. So I guess any surplus is generated from the solar system and the whole community finance model. We model in a bit of a surplus over the time, and that flows into Celsius or any community energy groups community benefit fund, and that powers any energy advice workshops, community training, and energy efficiency interventions that we do for deprived communities all over Southeast London. And we've helped over 4,000 households through the service already in the last few years, which is great. So the community ownership model isn't necessarily for everyone, but it really does have powerful effects in bringing closer ties and educational benefits, as well as obviously significant savings in terms of carbon and cost. And we can kind of have a look at an example of that in a second. But yeah, so I guess this model is great for some organizations, not for others. Like Andrew was saying, PPAs are kind of better for the larger sites. And for us, this kind of model, 50, 60 kilowatts is kind of the smallest that makes sense. So a high street shop, you'd probably be looking at a self-finance or other financing opportunities instead of a kind of a 20-year community project. And also, obviously, if we're wanting to look at a 20-year relationship and buying power, you kind of want to think that you're going to be at the site long term. And I guess in this way, community energy traditionally works with host sites in the community sector, so schools, libraries, leisure centres, museums, theatres, local government-owned facilities, universities, things like this. But I guess more and more we're looking at working with businesses that kind of serve the local community and see value in local energy and climate action. And I guess we're working with a data centre at the moment. And so we kind of see there's obviously all these opportunities out there. And this is quite an attractive approach for businesses that have strong CSR ambitions. Yeah, maybe Andrew, let's go to the next slide.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I guess this slide is just to highlight and illustrate kind of the long-term nature of any solar project, whether you are installing it and self-financing it, or doing any kind of PPA, kind of really to get the most out of a solar system. There is a bit of work to do. It's not really as set and forget as one would wish. So I guess one of the benefits of doing any kind of PPA, yeah, would be having someone look after the maintenance of the system, the operation of the system, replacing of any inverters if that goes wrong, cleaning, and just making sure everything is working as it should and safely. And you can see here, this is an example of a kind of a larger project down the bottom. So these example costs of insurance, maintenance, cleaning, that is kind of all built into the model we use to figure out what the power purchase agreement price is going to be, and any kind of benefits to then go into the community benefit fund. Yeah, and operation maintenance is, yeah, we have someone, Debbie, my colleague, who kind of does that. That's her full-time job, is looking after daily monitoring and billing and everything of all our existing sites, because it's quite an important part of making sure something works well for the long term, and we'll see why in a second.
Excellent. Next slide, Daniel.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I will. Yes. So currently, there's a few different opportunities. Actually, this is quite a well-timed session. If there's when it rains, it pours, and there's actually a lot of different opportunities out there right now. If a kind of a long-term community finance project isn't really right for your business or your organization, that's totally fine. I guess community energy groups and us as a community benefit society, we can access funding for feasibility and capital to help out for any part of the project as well. And then I guess hand those findings to you to then do with what you will. So right now the London Community Energy Fund is open and it closes on December the 7th. Lewisham Community Energy Fund is currently open and closes on the 8th. Greenwich Community Energy Fund is about to open, and the Southern Community Energy Fund, one round has just ended a few months ago. Mark and I actually got funding through that to do this micro tidal project on the Thames, which will be exciting. But basically, there's opportunities there to have the full development kind of feasibility work, including planning, grid connection, things like this for your business kind of funded and looked at, as well as capital potentially. Yeah, so those are kind of the things that are out there at the moment, just to give you a bit of an idea if this kind of community approach is of interest to anyone. Cool. And then maybe, Andrew, I think I've got a case study on the next slide, so maybe we can have a bit of a look at that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's the Intercontinental Hotel in Greenwich at the O2 Arena. This is before my time, but this is kind of a 150 kilowatt solar system on the roof of the Intercontinental. I think the installation process was quite stressful because this was, as you can see, March 2020, so it was a bit of a race against time before everything hit the fan at that time. It was originally meant to kind of offset the energy requirements of this giant tidal and a lunar clock that was going to be down on the waterfront there called a lunar time, which I don't think ended up happening. I think it was probably a victim of COVID as well. But so now that solar system just powers the Intercontinental Hotel, and we're in a 20-year power purchase agreement and roof lease agreement with the hotel. So I guess just to give you a bit of a sense of the impact and the benefits and what a kind of PPA might look like for a business. There's obviously a relatively large system, 150 kilowatts. So this was installed in 2020. So savings to date for the hotel, they've saved 54,500 on energy costs. And we've kind of modeled their 20-year savings to be £415,000, more than that. They pay 10.9p per kilowatt hour for the power that comes from the panels that they use. They're using 100% of it because their energy use there is quite massive. So they're not exporting anything to the grid. And that price has just been fluctuating with RPI. And over the lifetime of the system, we kind of modeled at £33,000 will flow to the Community Benefit Fund for all the poverty alleviation work that we do around Southeast London. So a really nice kind of community story there as well. And obviously you can see all the significant carbon savings to date for that site. Yeah, and I guess when it comes to feasibility and looking at different sites, these are the kind of things that we put into a pre-feasibility model and speak to businesses and sites about saying, hey, this is the kind of opportunity that is available, much as Andrew would do when speaking with new host sites.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. I think I've got a couple to go through. I'll start in the middle because it's very similar to the hotel. So I think last year or the beginning of this year, we completed an installation on the Crowne Plaza at the London Docklands. Smaller than the Intercontinental, but still of a reasonable size, so 64 kilowatt hours. It generated a lot of annual generation, about 56,000 kilowatt hours from there. The energy self-consumption, the hotel is taking 100% of it, as all hotels typically have very high energy consumption, but also slightly small roof space, and they're saving a considerable amount on their carbon reduction. What we had to do for this hotel, because it's so close to the flight path of London City, was we had to do some glint and glare. Daniel, I presume that was the same for the Intercontinental.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that may be true for a lot of large scale projects across Greenwich and the southeast. You know, where you're on the flight path, or at least close to the flight path, you will have to take measures to ensure that you're having as minimal impact as possible. And Glyn and Glare is one of those choices. The installation for Crowne Plaza was really interesting. We actually had to have a crane, had to erect a crane right next to the hotel in order to sort of achieve getting everything up to the top of the site. It was quite a constricted space. It's very much near the XL. That's quite a sort of small set of areas to work with. It was a project that completed just as I joined Green Shield, so that was great. Also of a similar time period, we worked with Boeing out in Crawley, where we installed quite a much larger system, which generates a lot more. And again, like the hotel, Boeing has very large energy requirements. What was interesting about this project is Boeing, like a lot of the aerospace industry, is very driven not just by saving on its energy costs, but also by its desire to kind of achieve lower carbon usage and actually reduce its carbon there. So for that project, they were interested in almost getting as much as they could off their site, and that's kind of where we came in, and that was a really interesting option. And I think again we won that with PPA. And then finally we got a different hotel, London Westminster. Again, you can see that solar works really well for hotels, assuming they've got a reasonable amount of roof. Again, 100% energy generation, similar size to the Crowne Plaza. Didn't need Glyn and Glare in this instance, I don't believe. So it was slightly easier, and I think actually as an installation it was slightly easier than the Crowne Plaza, just because it had slightly more space and easier access to the roof. And again, those are things that will have a practical impact on both the costing and the speed of the installation. So there's just a couple of case studies that we've done, which hopefully provide a little bit of a variety for you. And yeah, there we go. Thank you. And so any questions?
I think maybe before we get to any questions, and I was just gonna there was a point about asset management that I was gonna mention with the Intercontinental Hotel, which was, I guess, a story just after it was installed. One of the staff members at the hotel, for some reason, without telling anyone, turned off one of the inverters. It kind of shut down half the system. This is before we had proper monitoring set up for the site. And we didn't realize till we went to bill them 3 months later for the first quarter of the billing that half the system hadn't been working, and they lost all that power for 2 or 3 months. And if someone's not looking and monitoring the system, it might not work for, someone might turn it off or something might have gone wrong, and it could just be sitting there inactive for 6 months or a year. So yeah, no matter who's looking after the system, it's quite important to have all your monitoring and everything set up and have a good handover from your installer.
Yeah, and I can completely echo that. I think we had a project where we came in, they'd already had some solar installed. I think it was a school, and they asked us to kind of expand it onto a different roof. And we asked them, well, how much are you generating from this pre-existing installation? What's your savings? And they didn't know. And likewise, it wasn't set up. There was no monitoring. And I think that is Daniel, it's an amazing point to raise. Like, it's so important to make sure that whoever is looking after it is making sure it is working to the degree that it is supposed to. Otherwise, it's just going nowhere.
Yes, and if they leave the business, an organization, that someone else then takes it on and knows what's happening.
I mean, that would never happen. I'm sure handovers would work incredibly. We've all done perfect handovers. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing the slides. I'm gonna look to Mark for a nod on that.
Perfect. We've got a question from Anne. Anne, did you want to sort of also come on and speak your question?
I shall say it out loud. Andrew, Daniel, thank you so much. Drew, I've known what you do for a long time, but now I know properly. And Daniel, I've known about Celsea forever, but I understand it better. Brilliant. Thank you. And okay, from my own point of view, I'm self-employed. I work from home. So my curve is probably a flat curve that just goes down at night. But I was wondering, are there planning application requirements when you install solar panels? And the second part is, I'm in Brockley Conservation Area, Brockley Society. Do you know anything about their influence on things? And is it a dead lost trying to do it in broccoli.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can give that a go first, Andrew, if you like, and you can fill in anything I've missed. Yeah, great. And so I assume this is kind of for anything residential scale and up to kind of 50-ish kilowatts as permitted development. So yeah, that's all good to proceed. Because you're in a conservation area, you'll probably need to let the planning department know and the Broccoli Society, and they will ask for I guess photos and like when you get quotes from solar installers, they'll give you kind of some 3D imagery and plans of what the system would look like. You would kind of need to submit that to get a check and get approval. And that might cost £100 or something. And they might ask that it goes. I mean, I don't know what the setup of the roof is, but probably not visible from the street would be the primary thing. So depending on where you're kind of south facing roof might be that is either a non-starter or you'll be all good to go. But yeah, they'll probably ask for some street view photos that you can stand out in the street and take photos, and then those plans from an installer. But happy to chat to you offline about that as well.
That would be nice, actually. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've only done a very small one sort of domestic project because we typically focus on commercial. But to echo Daniel, yeah, like was working with an architect, and it's very much as even in councils that are very pro sort of moving into solar. I think this was one of the North London ones. It's still very much like people don't want to see the solar panels from the street, and so you just have to adjust accordingly. I don't know the size of the project, and here Daniel can correct me because again, residential not my area, but you may need to get DNO approval. Would you need to get DNO approval, Daniel, depending on the size?
I think no, not if it's residential size.
Perfect. There you go. So
What's DNO?
it's just the local network operator.
Oh, right. Okay.
UK Power Networks, where we are.
Yeah. Thanks. I've got another one if nobody else has.
Go on then, go on.
My other one was about sell back to the grid. Is that part of everything? I didn't hear anything about that. Have I missed it, or does it happen in your setups?
I'll briefly jump in. I think we have slightly different models. So yeah, we typically do sell back to the grid, and a lot of our clients will sell the excess energy that they have back to the grid. We're currently working with we're trialing with a partner at the moment who work with batteries and offering sort of more dynamic sell rates using batteries in order to improve the return. So it is very possible, and it can be profitable is the wrong word, but you can kind of have a positive impact on reducing your costs, and using batteries can also, at a certain level, depending on how you view the sustainability, batteries can also help you kind of gain access to more renewable energy throughout the night that you can then use during the day. So when wind farms are generating more of the energy, you could use a battery to kind of capture that energy and then use it in the day. But yeah, there are opportunities to sell back to the grid, albeit it's a slightly different model. And I think Daniel uses a slightly different model, so I'll let Daniel jump
in. Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's generally best to size your solar system for your own self-consumption. There's no longer any generous feed-in tariff. There is a smart export guarantee, which means retailers have to pay you something for what you generate back to the grid. But that's quite a low rate, so we try not to size systems for that. And depending on where you are in the grid and constraints, if you have quite a large system pumping a lot back into the grid, UK Power Networks may have an issue with that when it comes to your grid application. So just something to be aware of.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, to echo that, you shouldn't, I think both at a business level and a residential level, certainly at this point, you shouldn't expect to generate a good financial return from selling back onto the grid. There are old tariffs for residentials that exist that are excellent, but they are no longer available.
Right.
Okay, we've got.
Good to know.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Anne. We've got two questions. Go to Nahida first, then go to Aisha.
Oh, hi. Sorry, my camera's not working out at work. I just wanted to ask Andrew, with regards to your case studies, you have the Boeing Flight Center, and you had, was it over 450 kilowatt power,
Yeah.
and the annual savings was about 100. I don't know if you put the side up, you'll get more information. And if you compare that to Westminster, the size is less than 100, and the emissions are similar to the larger project you have in Boeing. I was just going to ask you, is that because the technology changes, and with the new technology you have better efficiency? So when you tie people down for 20 years, and obviously the technology is improving, they don't get. Would you give compensation potentially to customers who are saying, well, there's newer technology with better efficiency, why am I paying this amount of money? So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were regarding that. And plus, going to what Celsea did, in O2, they seem to have more efficient systems from what figures you've showed. Thanks.
Yep, that's fine. So I think So the difference between Boeing and Westminster is there's a difference in size of installation. Like the Boeing is a much larger installation, so that's why it's generating so much more. In terms of its carbon savings, there are a variety of factors that go into that mean that you can't necessarily do a one-to-one between energy generation and carbon savings. As far as I know. There could be things like Boeing are already using a renewable, using RECOs, so their energy provider is already offering a service where they're quite low on carbon, and so solar will have a less dramatic impact on the carbon reduction. So there's a number of factors that go into that. As to the efficiencies between the different hotels, and kind of how they achieve those. Again, there'll be things where it's just the installation will matter, but broadly, the solar panels and the installation itself will be at a similar level. I can't say for sure. I've never seen a Celsea installation, but broadly, you're talking about very similar panels on a roof, and the choices will be made, and the geographical location will also have an impact. I think if you saw the picture of the Crowne Plaza, you'll see that there was some points during the day where it was in the shade. Again, the Hilton has maybe more points in the day where it's in the shade. Whereas if you look at the O2 Arena, the O2 Hotel, at least at present, no one's built a building very large next to it having a possible negative impact on its efficiency. Like those are, to be honest, guesses based on the fact that I don't know that much about the O2. But those are I think it shows the number of factors that exist that have an impact on both your savings across energy and carbon. Is
Well,
that?
that's interesting. Yeah, so basically positioning it and the sun, or which angle the sun comes in makes a big difference.
And how many hours you've got like direct sunlight you're getting, and the way you've set up your network may also have an impact on how each panel is optimized. So there are choices you can make for the installation, and some of those will be cost-based, and some of those will be returns-based. But again, there's just a number of factors. Daniel, I don't know whether you have.
Yeah. I was just going to quickly just add, I guess, I was
just going to add, so some buildings might not be suitable for any of this, so you need to decide that. Okay, thanks.
I've definitely told some people that they shouldn't move ahead.
Many are not. Yeah. And I guess just in your point about technology improving, Nahida, that's a very fair point. And solar panel efficiencies do incrementally kind of go up year on year ever so slightly. But kind of at almost up to 450, 500 watt panels these days. A few years ago, it would have been kind of 400 each. But I guess the way we think about it is kind of like you wouldn't throw out your perfectly good iPhone when the next one comes out next year. Solar panels last for 20, 30, or even more years. Doesn't really make sense financially or environmentally to throw them out just because there's a slightly more efficient panel that comes in. Generally, kind of at the end of 20 years, you might look at putting in new inverters and maybe putting in new panels if it makes sense. But you can you can run the numbers at the time and see if that makes sense for any specific business or not.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nahida. And I might come back to you just to kind of give you a British Council, but go to Aisha and then.
I've got a question for Daniel. So I am on the committee for a block of flats in Bexley. I was just wondering if you work with flats.
Yes. We would like to work more with flats. There's some interesting kind of solar sharing technology that works for blocks of flats. And I've actually been interested to do a feasibility pilot project with a block of flats using this technology. So maybe we can maybe you can send me an email and we can chat about your specific building, because it is technically a bit harder, but it is certainly possible. Yeah, to share solar from one solar system amongst different flats in the building. So it is certainly possible. And I'd be very keen to see if it makes sense for your building. Have you looked at solar for the building before?
No, it just occurred to me right now. I suppose, well, since we're going through like a cost of living crisis, and a lot of estates have the same problem we have with service charges going up. So if we can help residents save money by putting solar on the roof, that would be really useful. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we
Yeah,
work
great. Yeah.
right now. So we would have to consult them because they manage the entire estate.
Yes, for sure. But we can, I guess, yeah, you and I can have a bit of a chat about that and then go to them with a bit more information.
Okay, lovely.
But that sounds cool. Great.
And do you do furniture workshops? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I was just responding to that. I'd say Malgoza, sorry for the pronunciation. I would say it's really worthwhile having a conversation, both with ourselves and certainly with Daniel. It's good to know your options, and also if there's, I think that initial start point, I think when we talked around the journey of exploration, I think it's worthwhile a lot of companies starting that point and trying to figure out whether solar works. As we've said, it doesn't work for everyone for a number of reasons, but I think it's always worthwhile, especially if your energy costs are as high as they are, it's worthwhile having that conversation.
Yeah, and if you kind of look after, if you monitor the system well and kind of keep track of it, any new tenant or any new owner coming in, you can say, look, we've put this £100,000 asset on the roof, it's saving us X amount per year, and that can be factored into decisions going forward.
Yeah. And then Dad, just a question from me to you.
Yes.
Do you do the installation yourself, or do you use sort of local EPCs and installers, or is it sort of
We use local installers. We'll do a kind of a procurement process and work with a few, and then select who we want to go with for any specific project.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and then we should probably also separately have a conversation around the PPA side, because
Sounds good.
I think it'd be good for us to kind of see about that.
And I guess Mark, thanks for the question, Mark. I guess you're from Hanukkah, aren't you? So just hazard a guess. Can I, does that answer your question? Margazata? No.
Yeah, if you want to leave your details in, and I guess
Yeah.
we can contact separately.
And Nahida, can I pick on you again, just to get given your role at the Greenwich Council? If you're still there, can you hear me, Nahida?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I just wondered whether it's just if you could just say a couple of sentences about another policy or your focus from a kind of carbon neutral plan perspective and solar. Is that?
Yeah, so we have about 6 schools which are using solar panels at the moment. We got PSDS funding for that, and we're looking for new opportunities to expand going forward. We're doing retrofitting for council homes as well, and we're using solar panels and air source heat pumps as well to retrofit some of the council buildings as well. Yeah, so we're working closely with Celsey as well, with regards to that. Yeah, I don't have any other things to add to that. Is that okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Right, so any other questions or comments? I think it's been a really good kind of introduction to solar, or I guess more than an introduction. And as I say, it will be on, it is recorded, will be on on the South East London Chamber website. Actually, it should be in 2 places. We also have a sustainability page, so it'll be on there with some of the other activities, webinars we've been doing. And if you've got any other ideas for or you'd like to focus on in respect to sustainability, obviously it's a wide topic, let us know, and hopefully then we can actually run something similar in the new year. So I guess a quick round of applause for Andrew and Daniel.